Okay, so yes, I managed to get out and see Jumanji this time. So we're a day late, and anyway, let's get into the film. This is a sequel, not a remake. Basically, it begins where the 1995 movie left off. That movie actually, the movie Welcome to the Jungle picks up in 1996, and the board game is discovered on a beach. This father takes it home to his son, who basically kind of like, who plays board games anymore? Chucks that and returns to playing his Sony PlayStation game. At this point, overnight, the game mysteriously transforms into a video game console with a cartridge. The kid plays the cartridge, and there's this big green flash, and then nothing more. At this point, we jump to the present, and there are four individuals. They're in high school. There's Spencer, a hypochondriac who basically is book smart and he's learned everything, and he's basically not quite bullied in the strictest sense of the term, but you know he's not one of the higher ups at school. And then there's Bridge, who used to be Spencer's friend when they were kids, but they grew apart over time. And then on top of all of that, he has actually come back to Spencer and asked him to do his homework so he could stay on the football team. After that, we have the self-absorbed Bethany, the pretty girl who takes selfies of herself and calls her friends in the middle of class, which obviously earns her detention right away. And after that, we have Martha, the bookish, smart girl who questions why she has to do gym class, and that's why she gets in detention. So obviously, yes, all four wind up in detention. When Bridge is caught with Spencer's report, or using Spencer's report as his own. And it's at that point they're told they have to clean out this room because it's going to be rebuilt at some point. They have to prepare all of these magazines to be recycled. They have to take all the staples out of them. And they have to do it over a few days, which means they have to come in on Saturday. As they're doing this, they discover the old video game console. They plug it in, and they select all of these characters. Spencer picks Smolder... shoot. Okay, so here are the characters. Spencer picks Smolder Bravestone. I didn't write this down very well. Bethany becomes Professor Shelley Oberon, believing Shelley to be a woman. Fridge becomes Moose Finbaum, a zoology expert. And Martha becomes Ruby Roundhouse. Anyway, they get selected in the game. As what happens, there's actually one other character that doesn't get selected, though, and I'll get to that when we get there. They get sucked into the game, obviously, and Spencer goes from being the nerdy kid to being the buffed up, being the Rock, basically. The Bridge, the athlete, gets turned into Kevin Hart. The self-obsessed Bethany becomes Jack Black, and Martha becomes the smoking hot redhead in the halter top of the short shorts. As there was the controversy that happened with that. They're like, no, there's an explanation, and they gave it. So there's even some commentary about it. At one point, even she borrows the professor's jacket because it's like to wear over her clothes because she just doesn't like having that much of her skin exposed, let alone that's exposed in the jungle. All of these characters also have their own strengths and weaknesses. Smolder Bravestone has no weaknesses, and he's all the strengths. Like, he's good with a boomerang, and he's super strong and good at fighting and good at running. And Shelley Oberon is good at cartography and reading maps and directions and everything like that. Ruby Roundhouse is an expert fighter. She has a weakness in venom, which I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of weak for everyone. I mean, and Finbaum, Moose Finbaum. It's originally thought that it's Moose. It's actually like a misprint in the game. They say Moose, they mean Mouse. Mouse Finbaum because it's Kevin Hart and he's short, so he's diminutive like a mouse. and his weakness is speed and cake. They also have tattoos on their arms that are basically life counters or health bars. When they die, they lose a tattoo, and it goes over, and they respawn, basically. And they're basically picked up by a guy named Nigel, who says they have to lift a special curse, that a jewel that was set in the eye of a stone jaguar was stolen by a rival archaeologist named Van Pelt, and that has cursed the land of Jumanji. Van Pelt actually has the ability to control other animals, but Nigel managed to swipe the jewel away, and now the other four must return it back to the jaguar statue to save Jumanji. At this point, that's kind of where the plot sort of, not so much halts, but definitely slows down. It becomes way more character building and oriented. We get various bonding throughout a lot of it. We get, like, there's this scene where basically Shelley, Bethany, as Professor Shelley Oberon, has to go to the bathroom, except Bethany is a girl and Shelley is not. And so it falls to the other two guys to teach Bethany how to urinate properly, basically. We get another scene where Bethany has to teach Martha how to flirt and how to actually be a babe, because she's not used to that. We get a few more points. I mean, we get The Rock. It's funny because Spencer is the nerdy kid who is literally trapped in the body of The Rock. And one of his other powers is smoldering intensity. And so whenever he gets serious and talks like this, both Jack Black and Karen Gillan start going, oh, yes, that's what we should do, yes. Anyway, they kind of go on a few other adventures, and it's then that they come across Nick Jonas as Seaman McDonough, or Sea Captain McDonough, or something like that. But he is actually Alex, this kid from the 1996 kid who got sucked into the game, and he's been missing for 20 years. It's, basically the house he was from is fallen into this dishevelment. His father still is there, but you don't know if anything else is going on, basically. But here's the other tie back to the original movie. Alex has been living in the home of Alan Parrish, the Robin Williams character who got trapped in Jumanji in the first movie. So, yeah, see, this is where they actually work in a little bit more on this. So, there's some really good points into that. Anyway, eventually they kind of make their way through. Van Pelt's forces are chasing them along. A couple times they lose some lives. Funny thing is, unlike the first Jumanji, they don't really work the animals into this very well. I think that's probably a big detraction on this. There's not a lot of scenes involving animals. I mean, there's one scene right off the bat. Professor Shelley is eaten by a hippo. And then there's another scene involving a black mamba. And then there's another scene involving a chase scene and some rhinoceros, where in the midst of this, Bridge loses the jewel, and they have to get it back. And basically, Spencer throws Bridge off the helicopter to use him as a sort of distraction for the rhinos so that they can get the jewel back. Unfortunately, that's kind of interesting in a bit, but it's almost immediately dropped afterwards. That's probably the one real drawback to that. But eventually they get to where they're going. As this is happening, obviously, too, another undercurrent is Martha and Spencer have been falling in love. Although they've actually had feelings for each other for quite some time, but they've never actually spoken to one another. They've just noticed each other. And there's actually a very funny scene where, they confess their feelings, and they go in to kiss, and neither of them has kissed anyone before, and it's just really like, it's like, okay, so maybe we should try again. And that's how that goes. Like I said, eventually they get to the Jaguar with, they fight off Van Pelt's forces. In the midst of this, there's like this big gauntlet with these Jaguars that are lining up everything, but they're under Van Pelt's control. However, basically, Bridge comes up with a plan to basically use a distraction, and he finds an elephant that he's able to control because he actually has the jewel. It's basically this big misdirect that everyone thinks, yeah, Smolder Braveheart Spencer has the jewel, when in reality he doesn't. Basically, in the midst of all of this, the jewel gets flipped into a snake pit, and Martha goes in there to grab the snake pit, and she just tells Spencer to rush towards the jaguar statue. She gets to the snake pit. Van Pelt confronts her, but she points out, my weakness is venom, and she has one of the snakes bite her, and she really respawns right next to Spencer, and they put the jewel in, they say Jumanji, and that saves the game, saves Jumanji. They go back, basically Nigel, the guy from before who explained everything, shows back up, and they have to shake his hand to return home. And they've returned back, but they don't know where Alex is. He's missing. And it turns out, when Alex returned, he returned back to 1996. And so the house that had been called the Freak House, because, like I said, it just, the kid had disappeared, and it had basically fallen into dishevelment. It's all fixed up. It's nice. Alex is, not Tom Hanks, Colin Hanks. He has a wife and children, one of whom he's named Bethany. Yeah, that was something else that happened. Alex and Bethany kind of formed a bit of a bond. Alex actually dies because he's down to his last life, and he gets bitten by a mosquito, which is his weakness. But Bethany gives one of her lives to Alex to save him and bring him back. And so, yeah, like I said, they actually form kind of a bond, but she's sort of disappointed when she finds out, oh, he's married and have kids, but, oh, wait, it's when he finds out he named one of them Bethany, he's sort of, it sort of gets them back in the good graces, like, we're still friends, even though obviously no real relationship is going to happen. Whew. Okay, so, like I said, the movie is really good, and the humor really works in a lot throughout. You really get strong performances from pretty much everyone. I would say maybe the weakest was Kevin Hart, just because a lot of his stuff is more like, oh, I used to be the big jock, and now I'm, this scrawny little nobody. But you have The Rock playing a nerd, literally a nerd trapped in the body of The Rock. So yeah, Martha is kind of also, I'd say, probably next to the weakest. Just because, again, a lot of her stuff is more of the awkward, why am I wearing, a halter top and short shorts running around the jungle? This is not conducive to being in a jungle. Probably the next one is, Jack Black steals a lot of scenes because it's Jack Black acting like a stuck-up teenage girl. And again, Jack Black having to, teach Karen Gillan how to properly flirt. Really steals a lot of the scenes. And again, The Rock, like I think I already said that, so really strong performances throughout this, utilizing the whole character differentials going pretty well. The villain Van Pelt is pretty forgettable. I mean, he's really underutilized. He's shown as having control over the animals, but it's a pretty vague control, and like I said, animals don't really play a big role on this. That's probably another real setback. That being said, I did thoroughly enjoy this film, so I am going to give it a B. Okay, trailer time. We have a couple new trailers and some pretty retreads, but not so much exactly. Like, maybe it's because I haven't seen so many movies in a bigger space of time, but at least in this case, they didn't feel so much like retreads when they showed them again. The first one is Insidious, The Last Key. I guess the culminating Insidious saga arc. I saw the first two Insidiouses. I liked the first one, and the second one was just the first one, save for the last 10 minutes, shaved off. I never saw the third one. I've heard some pretty good things about the Insidious movies. Like I said, I liked the first one enough. The second one, I haven't seen anything like The Conjuring or any of the other James Wan, Blumhouse horror films, so I can't really speak too much to that. After that, we have Maze Runner, The Death Cure again. Then we have Paddington 2, which looks good, but I kind of already know most of what happens in it, not just because of the trailer. Film Brain did his projector review of it, and I saw that, so that's what I was like, yeah, and I kind of know a lot that happens. After that, we have Black Panther again, and then rounding things out, Wrinkle in Time again. Okay, so obviously the next video is going to be the 100 Bullets review. After that, well, that's pretty much it for 2017. I'm not gonna put any new videos out until 2018. Don't know when. I'm going to definitely do the Marvel Netflix series that I've all missed. So be trying to recap those. Don't know what the next proper movie review is necessarily going to be. January is a infamous dead zone for movie releases. There is one on January 12th. I'm kind of interested in seeing Proud Mary with Taraji P. Henson in it. So that might be the next movie review proper. See you all next time. Hey guys, just a reminder, I am on Patreon now at patreon.com/SleepyTimeForCatProductions. There's a reward tier where you can request for me to review a movie. So if you want to force me to see something like the Emoji Movie, here's your chance.